Okay, here are 5 stupid things I've noticed about Islamophobia. It's poorly named. I'm referring to the subject of this video as Islamophobia because that has become the most commonly used term for the unjustified and irrational fear, hatred, and/or vilification of Muslims. It's also been used to describe the double standards we often use when thinking or talking about Muslims and Islam. A better term might be anti-Muslim bigotry, and in fact that is the preferred term of many folks, Muslim and non-Muslim alike. But no matter what you call it, prejudice against Muslims and their religion is pervasive, harmful, and very, very real. And that last bit is an important one to remind people of when discussing Islamophobia, because its existence is frequently denied. Islamophobia is easy to see and unfortunately quite commonplace in our culture. It exists across a wide spectrum, from violent hate crimes committed against Muslims to the ways in which many of us think and talk about Muslims and their religion. And yet there are still those who insist with apparent conviction, despite all evidence to the contrary, that Islamophobia doesn't exist, that it's an invented term referring to a non-existent problem. Some of these folks resort to pedantic deconstructions of the term itself, insisting that Islamophobia means fear of Islam, but I just think Islam is false. I'm not afraid of it. Others rely on the already trite excuse of Islam isn't a race. Right, of course, because stereotyping and mistreating people on the basis of their religion is perfectly fine. Isn't that how that works? But by far the most common form of Islamophobia denial is this next one. It's disguised as legitimate criticism. I have nothing against Muslim people. I am criticizing Islam, the religion, and its ideas. I have to be able to criticize bad ideas, don't I? This is the mantra of many Islamophobes, or perhaps I should call them anti-Muslim bigots. And the thing is, there is such a thing as legitimate criticism of Islam. Of course there is. Like every other religion ever invented by humans, Islam is fair game. Its arguments can be countered, its claims can be refuted, and cultures it has influenced can be rebuked for their excesses and abuses. The insidious thing about Islamophobia is that many of those who practice it will insist that they are actually engaging in legitimate criticism of Islam. And sometimes that pretense can be very convincing. Islamophobia isn't always practiced by angry, blatant, foaming-at-the-mouth bigots. Those are easy to spot. But in addition to them, it's practiced by people who ought to know better, including, I'm sad to say, some of the most prominent public figures of the atheist movement. My fellow atheists can be some of the most stubborn of all Islamophobes because they don't see double standards and vilification. They see an extension of their quite rational rejection of religion in general. Never mind that here in the US at least, Christianity as a whole is not implicated when someone cites their Christian beliefs as justification for some horrible act of violence or murder. There are not calls to alter security measures to protect us from Christian terrorists. In fact, we hardly ever refer to such people as terrorists. It's understood, even by those of us who hold it to be false, that Christianity is a religion of great ideological and theological diversity, and it would be unfair to judge the whole by its angriest and most regressive members. Yet all too often we fail to treat Islam and Muslims the same way. This sort of thinking is not only biased and inimical, worse yet, it serves the aims of extremists. Gangs of Islamist terrorists like Daesh, the so-called Islamic State, want Muslims to be singled out and alienated in secular societies. They want Islam in general to be defined according to their literal fundamentalist interpretation of the Quran and their barbaric, violently oppressive attitudes toward women, LGBTQ folk, and non-Muslims. They want to erase moderates by convincing us that moderate Muslims are just Muslims who lack commitment, that the only truly authentic Muslims are these zealous and brutal jihadists. There are way too many people who despise groups like Daesh, but who propel their narrative anyway, because they don't seem to realize that bigotry stated in an intellectual voice is still bigotry, and unacknowledged biases are biases all the same. The hardest part is only picking 5. Catch you next time. Hey folks, hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please like it, share it, subscribe to the channel if you're not subbed already, and also please consider helping me to make more videos like this by supporting this channel through Patreon. You can go to patreon.com/Steve Shives to become a patron. Thanks for watching.